Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Meeting for Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. It is 9:07 a.m. My name is Ken, the Vice Chair of the Board. Our Chair, Commissioner Mejia, will be here in a few moments. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards, and to his left is the County Manager, Miro Chavez. To my right, Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We're slated from 9 to 12. We'll have a midpoint recess for probably 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to start off with item 1, homeless strategies update. And Keely Mariner, good morning.
Good morning, Keely Mariner with Public Health and Social Services. I'm mostly going to give you an update on our hazardous weather response. So we declared a hazardous weather event last Wednesday for freezing temperatures and snow. Initially, it was just going to be through Saturday morning, but we have extended it through tonight. And we're looking at the potential of extending it beyond that, as temperatures are going to remain below freezing, potentially through Friday. But the weather is fickle, so it's hard to know, and it is always dependent on staffing levels and if we can safely staff the shelters. However, Interfaith Works has offered beds every night since last Wednesday at their new facility at 4 Martin Way called Sergio's Place, and have had 140 total beds that have been occupied during this cold weather snap, averaging about 23 individuals per night. And then Yelm has, for the first time this winter, had a hazardous weather shelter. And so we're very excited about that. This is the second time they've operated it, and they have had 53 individuals or beds throughout the week. And they have also been in operation since last Wednesday. So good news all around. Really glad that we have such a big space here now in Olympia at Sergio's, and that Yelm is also able to participate in these super cold weather days. So, and other than that, I think that's it for my update.
Commissioner Edwards.
When you say 143 beds or 53 like Yelm has, is that per evening, per night? Or
no, that's total. That's all total. That's total. Mm-hmm.
So over how many days did this take place?
6, and tonight will be the 7th night.
Okay, I guess I'm a little slow this morning, but that's total numbers of beds per night that are occupied?
No, so they average about 23 people per night at Interfaith Shelter. And all told, all 6 days, there have been 140 beds filled. So it's about 23 people per night.
Okay. Do you have the number? Could you remind me of the point in time count that folks that are in a bad situation here like this?
Yes, I can get that in just a moment. It's for unsheltered individuals. I don't have it.
No, just total of folks that we would refer to as homeless.
So I'm going to hazard an educated guess, because the point in time count, of course, is an undercounting due to the methodology. And so I believe it's around 300 unsheltered individuals that were captured in the PIT count last year. That does not count those that are staying in, the mitigation site or Quinn Street Village. And I would say that it's at least double that. So I would say that there's easily 600 to and up of people that are experiencing homelessness.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keely. Item 2 is to begin review of the draft agenda for this afternoon's meeting, which will begin at 2 p.m. We'll call that meeting to order. Have the Pledge of Allegiance led by me and the we will have a presentation regarding Women's History Month proclamation with a connected, I think, recognition for the Olympia Women's Club anniversary. And anything we need to address there?
No,
Insurance
just,
required.
this is the opportunity for the board to declare, March, the national, sorry, it's Women's History Month, in Thurston County. And, the board last week, had a discussion. We also had a request do a proclamation for the 140th, anniversary for the Olympia Women's Club. And the board agreed to have a little bit of a different approach, having the proclamation for the Women's History Month, and maybe just have a recognition of the 140th Women's Club of Olympia. And we have included this language for your consideration. Perhaps Madam Chair can state that after the proclamation. And also you have a certificate of appreciation for your signature that you may also exercise to celebrate 140th celebration of the Women's Club of Olympia.
Questions on the proclamation?
No, sir.
No? Okay, so. That's it. Madam Chair, we're just at item 1 on the.
Now this is an opportunity for the public to address the board and county members.
Yeah, I presume that you will be receiving public testimony this afternoon. I believe Mr. Petty has submitted a couple of pieces of documentation to you. I would assume that he will probably verbalize those statements that he made on those emails. That's as far as I know in terms of public testimony. Related to the county manager's update, I would like to follow up with a presentation demonstration of some high school kids related to climate crisis. As you may recall, there was a testimony as well as some staging of, I believe, 5 high school students who laid on the floor pretend to be, dead related to climate change. I will probably just highlight that we have received those comments, and then at that point, I will ask Rebecca Harvey to come to the podium and outline what we have done so far in addressing this matter and what are we planning to do in the future. So Rebecca will provide the board and as well as to the public some of the efforts that Thurston County has already done and planning to do related to climate mitigation.
So Rebecca will probably do this, but the timing is somewhat good because at yesterday's climate meeting, we adopted or reviewed, I should say, the 2022 annual report, which has a new format, which I think is a lot easier for the public to read. And it kind of outlines all the different actions happening in the various jurisdictions, categorized by the actions in the climate mitigation plan. So we might want to have 5 or 10 copies of that. I mean, I don't know that the folks that were here last week are going to be here this week, but just we might want to have that handy and make reference to it, and Rebecca can make reference to it so folks can see in a much more comprehensive fashion than she's going to have time to go through kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I'll make sure we have copies available, sir.
I have that in my office. I can get you at the break.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards? Okay. So with that, we'll move on to consent items A through G. The first one. A is Department of Natural Resources Interagency Agreement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You reviewed this item last week, and this is a request from the Department of Natural Resources they have asked the county to provide some support. DNR is going through somewhat of a capacity testing and the wildland firefighting employees, and they go through this process, and this time they will be housing here in Thurston County. So they have asked Medic One to provide the necessary personnel, equipment, materials, and other emergency medical services at this state size while they conduct their training. This is what I stated last week, a cooperating agreement with UNR. There is no cost to the county, and all the hours that will be spending and supporting these training efforts will be covered by DNR. So this is the instrument in which will allow us for us to bill DNR for those activities. And I believe Kurt is here to cover for Ben, if you have any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? No questions from me. Next item is from the Sheriff's Office, a resolution reclassifying Section 10R00342 from a legal assistant to a Sheriff's Office system administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You also reviewed this item last week. And as the Sheriff Sanders took office, he was looking for opportunities as to how he can enhance the operations of his office. And he saw this as a one step as to how they can, the Sheriff's Office can implement efficiencies within the Sheriff's Office. At first, he was hoping to create a new position. Unfortunately, that's off cycle for the board to consider. So this is the best approach to reclassify the vacant position to meet his needs of the office. So this particular request is for you to consider reclassification of a vacant legal assistant position to a office system administrator. This particular action will be increase the budget from $5,244 to $9,978, an increase of $4,734, a 90% increase. It is expected the Sheriff's Office will cover this impact on their budget this year. So they are not asking for increase on their budget for 2023. However, come the biennial budget, if the board approves, that becomes part of the base budget. The increases will be currently included on that. Chief Carter is here to answer any questions if you have any.
Good morning, Chief Carter. Do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think we said enough last time.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I agree with the chief. She covered it before. Sounds good. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? No questions for me. Thank you. Next item from the Treasurer's Office is authorize the sale of tax title property via private negotiation to Ian Blair.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item, Madam Chair, Commissioners, last week. And it's a little bit of a background, as Treasurer Gadman stated last week. Few years ago, the Board of County Commissioners entrusted the Treasurer's Office to go ahead and systematically dispose of the tax title properties, with the intent that those properties will become part of the tax role of the county. So this particular property for you has been exempt status since 2019. It is, sorry, it is a 0.011 acres, 0.11 acres. And the current sale price that is planned to be sold to the owner of the property next door will be for $3,107.50. That will include all the associated fees related to this transaction. Also, I stated last week, the impact to the general fund in terms of property taxes will be just about $17.80. And again, this is a continued effort by the Treasurer's Office to surplus tax title properties to bring it back into the tax roll of, so I believe Eric Sullivan is here from Treasurer's Office, if you have any questions.
Eric, anything you would like to add?
Not at this time.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, from the Commissioner's Office is appointment amendment to the Agricultural Advisory Committee. And then D, E, F, and G are all appointments to different boards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first appointment the board discussed, to bring it up for your attention and formal action, is the appointment of Ms. Stella Boxwing to the Agricultural Advisory Committee as a non-farmer member, with an expiration term of February 28, 2025. The next item is for you to reappoint Mr. Jacob Yancey to the Agricultural Advisory Committee for a 2-year term with the expiration date of February 28, 2025. The next items is for you to consider reappointing Ms. Grace Edwards to the Historic Commission for a 4-year term with a term expiration of February 28, 2027. And last, not least, and related to the appointments, will be for you to consider appointing Mr. Tom Carroll to the Medic One EMS Council for a 2-year term with a term expiration of February 28, 2025.
Thank you. Questions?
My only question at this point would be, under the public health issues, item D and E are also appointments to boards, and I'm just wondering how come we just didn't include everything? That's all. Maybe there was a reason.
I'm sorry, I'm missing what you said.
Under
sir.
public health, under 6,
Because
D and E.
since these ones are new, I guess
Yeah,
that
this
they
is-
require.
Yeah, those require formal action.
Even though we're not naming them on this, huh? Okay, that's fine.
You're saying the appointments to the subcommittee of the Regional Housing Council.
Yeah, under D and E, that's all I was just.
I mean, you do have the option to have a consent agenda on those, but I think it will be worth to highlight the.
No, I just was asking what the deal was, if
I
there's
think it
something
will be good
unusual.
for staff to highlight this afternoon what the Regional Housing Council, the subcommittees, and what they're planning to
I'm
do.
just trying to consolidate
Yeah.
the time issue.
No, we do have a heavy agenda. We have 2 public hearings today, so.
I have a question maybe for clerk of the board. I'm lost a little bit. We've gone in so many circles on the ag appointment. So Stella Waxwing is being appointed to a non-farmer spot, and I'm confused because I thought there was like, somebody suggested we expand the board, and somebody suggested that we create an ex officio thing, and how is, what kind of
I
appointment
think
is
a
it?
vacancy is coming up,
Eugene McPherson in her resignation.
Yeah.
not going to-
so that created that vacancy, so it was not
She's a
need.
farmer.
No,
She's a non-farmer
farmer.
seat. Her term expired on the 26th, and she opted not to apply for reappointment. And so it created that additional non-farmer spot. So it was discussed during Friday's planning session to amend her appointment to that non-farmer seat because the committee had concerns about the expansion of it, and they were requesting to meet with the board for some clarification.
Okay, so we already did the one where it was Greg, Sean
Yes.
Faulkner, and this is, just happened to be another seat that opened.
Yes.
Okay,
And I think the board already took an action as an ex officio, and this changes that because a vacancy was created.
just trying to remember how
Appreciate
we
that.
landed. Thank you.
And then, just as a follow-up to Friday's conversation, we did discuss adding an ex officio for 4-H, for FFA, if you'll let the ag board know.
What do we have to do to make that?
So I think it will just require an action by the board since it's an ex officio, they will not have a voting, but it will have a presence and a voice. Right.
Do we want to make some attempt at getting the word out to, I don't know, FFA groups or whatever to?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we can reach out to the fair board. They have connections
Yeah,
for
fair board.
4-H. Yeah,
We
yeah.
can reach out to the 4-H group that reached out to us last year to give the presentation on the animal sales that they did at the youth fair as well, and see if maybe they have somebody that might be interested.
Well, I guess the only thing I'd ask is if we don't limit it just to one group, that we make sure we get the word out to other affiliates of that type, that they have an option. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Interested, but-
Maybe we can work on a news release, because this is a brand new consideration. Maybe we can highlight the opportunities for each.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on, if there's no more questions about the appointments that we're going to be doing. And then Commissioner Edwards, do you want to move the public health items D&E to the consent agenda?
Well, I just brought it up as a question why. my seatmates want to do that, I'm fine. If they don't want to, I'm fine. So
I'm fine.
I'm fine either way.
putting it to the consent?
Yeah.
Okay. We're creating more work for,
No, moving the item to the consent is not a,
it's not a big deal.
so the
Okay.
consideration that I put in front of you, commissioners, this is a brand new subcommittee.
Okay, so
So, and I think when you go through in consent, there's appointments, reappointments to already established committees. It may be worth for staff to highlight what the subcommittees will do under the Regional Housing Council. And certainly, reappointments or appointments could be going into the consent. That's my suggestion to the board.
we'll move on to department items from 4A from the auditors. That's approval of the voucher list for the week of
Thank you.
February 6th.
Madam Chair, this is, you stated, this is a voucher list for the week of February 6, 2023 for a combined amount of $1,561,361.18. And this voucher list include expenditure items related to the atrium.
Any questions?
I guess my only question is of moving to the atrium. I mean, we
Yes,
haven't
what
gotten to
is,
the point where it's just normal course of doing business yet.
so there are items in here for lease and the parking and everything, and there's
Yeah,
already
okay.
included in here, but that's the operational elements of the atrium. This is what I have in the department items because you request to have
Okay,
the remaining items of the tenant improvements, we still have a little lag on.
thank you. It's almost over.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
No.
Okay, moving on to emergency services, items 5A, federal fiscal year 2022 emergency management performance grant funding agreement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Federal Emergency Management Performance Grant, also known as EMPG, provides annual funding to support local emergency management programs and capabilities throughout the state. This funding is primarily used to support Thurston County emergency preparedness, public education programs, resource management and logistics planning and preparedness and mitigation planning, including portions of full-time emergency management coordinator position. The performance of this grant goes from June 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023. And is for $176,697, requires a 50% match. And the matching requirements already included on the current budget. As I stated last week, there's a little bit of a delay on this because just this January, the state gave us the green light to have this document in place. That's where we bring this matter before you. So it will be somewhat of a retroactive coverage of the activities that goes back to June 1st, 2022. And again, Kurt is here to cover for Ben if you have any questions.
Thank you. Kurt, anything you'd like to add?
No, the county manager gave a good.
Commissioner Edwards,
No,
any questions?
no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, no questions? No questions for me. Okay, moving on to public health and social services. Item 6A is amendment to extend contract with Thurston County Chamber Foundation for Thurston Thrives backbone support for 1 year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment number 4 includes a $40,000 annual contract. And this contract has been in place since 2019. And that's what you see amendment number 4. So the total cumulative contract on this umbrella is $200,000. That goes back to 2019, $40,000 a year. That we had, you had a discussion in terms of the Thurston Thrives, where will the money come from? And there is an avenue to provide the funding, $40,000 through Foundational Public Health. And I believe that is in a good alignment to the activities that Thurston Thrives is planning to do. I'll be more than happy to walk you through those additional details if you have any questions. Also, Chris is here to answer any questions.
Chris, anything you'd like to add? You're on mute, I think.
He's shaking his head.
Oh, no? Okay. Commissioner Edwards?
And no general fund dollars.
Well, originally you, on your budget as part of the general fund, but you suggested,
Yeah, okay.
directed, because we need to find a different funding source, and this is what it is.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah? So that means we have additional money for the dead trees that are gonna come up, right?
That will be a good option for the board to exercise that.
The tree fund.
That tree fund.
We don't have a fund, but you have
Yeah.
options.
General
now.
fund. Okay, great, thank you.
Although we're calling it decaying trees.
Item 6B, Emergency Solutions, Grant COVID Contract Amendment with Department of Commerce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Items B and C are related. Item B is related to a contract with the Department of Commerce to receive an additional $851,440 under the Emergency Solutions Grant. Under the CARES Act, Thurston County has been allocated funding through this funding source. And the amounts to a total of $3,255,300, including the additional funding that might be coming to the county. These funds need to be spent by September 30, 2023. So far, we have been very effective to manage those additional funds. And that is why, one more time, the Department of Commerce has reached out to Thurston County since they have remaining funds under this particular CARES Act. So this is the first item for you to consider is the amendment with the Department of Commerce to receive the grant. In item 6C for your consideration is the distribution of those funds to the providers. And that distribution and under item 6C includes a community youth service for emergency shelter in the Rossi Place for $76,000. City of Olympia for hygiene services for just about $47,000. For Olympia Mutual Aid Partners Outreach for about $365,000. Interfaith Works First Christian Emergency Shelter for $293,000. And Partners in Education as an outreach effort for just about $50,000. So those are two items that are related. And Keely is here to answer any questions.
Keely, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think County Manager did a great job summarizing, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, under 6B, it's almost 5 million, but I thought you said 3 million and something, but maybe I didn't hear that right.
Oh, that was the initial. It was what it stated was 3.9, the initial. With the additional 800,000, it will bring it up to 4.9. Sorry if I confused you.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
what
the baseline that we had plus
Yeah.
the 800,000, yeah.
that
I can
covers-
repeat
That
them.
covers, that covers my concern. Thank you.
Commissioner Mensah?
Keely, can you outline the process that resulted in these recommendations under C?
Yes,
Who reviewed what and under what time frame, and what was the process by which these recommendations came to us?
absolutely. And if Tom is also here, if I misspeak, Tom, please rescue me. So what occurred was the Department of Commerce reached out to us to let us know that we would have there would be extra ESGCV funds available to us if we should want to take it. And so our office reached out to the agencies that had received ESGCV funds before during the pandemic to see, one, if they were interested in receiving any additional funds, and if so, what would what activities would it be and what budget would they ask for? And so in the spirit of these agencies already had contracts with us for ESGCV funds, they are ostensibly an amendment to those funds originally awarded. So those agencies did reach back out and gave us budgets that they would require to continue those activities originally funded through ESGCV. And we made the determination on the amounts allocated after we found out the total amount being awarded to us. And then a percentage was utilized in order to distribute the funds equitably. Did I get that correct, Tom?
Yes, you did.
So the selection of these particular folks occurred earlier in the process, sounds like, and then with this extra money, we just reached back out to them to see if they could make good use of it.
Correct.
Okay, so then earlier in the process, when those agencies were selected, did that come through a subcommittee of the Regional Housing Council, or how did they originally get to be the ones contracted with the original pot of money?
Tom, take us back.
Take us
back.
Yeah, take us back. Yeah, so this was actually originally, if you go even further back than ESG, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we received some funding from the state, put together a plan with, what was it called? It was state funding around $1 million. And so we had to come up with a plan for an emergency response. And so this really came out of the initial COVID planning, working with local partners, working with public health to come up with a plan to respond to COVID-19. And so there was an effort to reach out to those agencies and to determine what activities to keep people safe, social distance, and whatnot. So that was the initial plan from the state. And then when we received the ESG dollars, we based the award of those ESG dollars to continue the implementation of that plan that was approved by the state of Department of Commerce at the state. So those awards were based on conducting outreach to allow people to remain, to keep social distance and providing supplies and support to them, increasing social distancing in our shelters, so allowing our shelters to go to 24/7 operations and allow for an expansion of that shelter space to allow for social distancing, and then providing the hygiene services. So those were really the activities that were identified during the initial COVID planning process. So there was I'm trying to remember whether there was actual formal RFP process or not, but there were applications submitted to make those awards. So you're stretching my memory a little bit, but that's hopefully that answers your question.
Not really.
Not really. Okay, sorry.
Would that have been your office that would have matched up those applicants to the permitted activities and decided that the agencies that received the money would be the ones receiving the money? Or did some other group vet those agencies or applications?
Yeah, it was our office. These awards did not go through the Regional Housing Council because they were COVID money. They did not go through the Regional Housing Council for review or approval. So our office brought those recommendations to the board. I believe it was around September of 2020.
And I'm less concerned because obviously they've already been doing work and you know, these are extensions of activities that are ongoing, but you can assure the board, county commissioners, that the process that was followed is in line with all requirements of the receipt of that money and deployment of that money.
Yes, we have been audited by Department of Commerce for ESG. We've gone through risk assessments. We did the initial risk assessments for agencies, so those are all in place. So yes, we believe we followed all the appropriate processes for the awarding of this money.
Just a quick follow-up. Any chance under B that when you cover this so the public becomes aware of what we're doing, could you add those totals up so we actually refer to this 4.9 million? Tom?
So in the AIS, you're looking for the totals that each agency received.
Oh, no, but somehow here, the 3.9 and 851.
Yeah, and then there was an additional.
Whatever came to this total number, that's all, what was included in that.
If I may, what are you asking is, on item 6C, item 6B is we received the money, right, from the Commerce. And item 6C is when we distribute the money to the providers, and that's the question that Commissioner Messer was asking. Perhaps what you're asking is, under item 6C, we have 76,000 for community youth services. If this afternoon can provide the total money the community youth service has received in addition to the $76,000, is that?
Well, I'm trying to make the public aware of whatever adds up to this 4.9 million. 4,955,585. And it seemed like the 851 and the 3.9 did not add up to that number. That's the only.
Who wants to break out the numbers?
Well, I don't know that you need to break it out. It's just that those, you can say plus other funds or whatever, but the total dollar amount looked like it was up to 4,900.
Yeah, that's the total with the 851,000.
Yeah, and there was an additional, I believe it's in the body of the AIS, an additional 250 or so thousand that we received for the Deschutes encampment when we hoteled folks at the Super 8. So there was an additional smaller amount within
Maybe
that.
that wasn't
4.9
in
million.
there then. Maybe that's the part that I'm missing.
So that should be listed in the body of the AIS.
Okay, well then that kind of solves the problem, I guess.
No, but,
I don't want any doubt.
no, but we can certainly bring additional information if you feel comfortable, whatever information you need. I mean, that's not a, I mean, we can
Well, no,
elaborate.
I'm
it.
afraid somebody's gonna add up the one with the other, and it's not gonna add up to the right
But
amount.
3.9 is not in here, so no one's gonna be confused.
Yeah,
by
yeah,
that.
well, that's right, but it was given to us, and it was just confusing to me, that's all, and we get scrutinized pretty good. Confusing.
200,000 chunk there. to
And,
present
and,
it.
and
Sounds like
the,
from Tom.
the body of the AIS information is included and available to the public. It wants to hear all the documentation.
I just don't wanna confuse anybody if I can help it. Maybe I'm easily confused. That might be. I'm not worried about it, I'm just trying to clarify everything, thank you.
And I don't have. Moving on to item 6D, appointment of board members to the Regional Housing Council Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and maybe covered with item E, which is the appointment of board members to the Regional Housing, for the Regional Housing Council's Homeless Service Advisory Board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you may recall the Board of County Commissioners approved amendment number 2 to the Regional Housing Council and local agreement on February 14, 2023. And that amendment included a couple key pieces under the Regional Housing Council. One was the consolidation of the home fund of Olympia Home Fund as well as the Thurston County Home Fund. And with the overall context also added two advisory committees. One is the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, which is outlined in item 6D. And the next is the Homeless Response Advisory Committee, which is highlighted on item 6E. So the Regional Housing Council Subcommittee, which I believe Madam Chair was part of that, reviewed the applications related to the two subcommittees, conducted interviews, and the result of that process, they submitted recommendations to the Regional Housing Council for appointments. And those recommendations are before you, and since the Regional Housing Council unanimously provided recommendations for you to consider appointments. So under the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, for your consideration is to appoint Dave Leron, David Puswick, Meg Martin, Taluna Reed, Charlie Messenger, Carly Colgan, Grace Lee, Kendra Landis, Trudy Sukum, Trish Gregory, Craig Chance, Jesse Simmons, and Donna Vern. For the most part, those are for between 2 and 3 year appointment to this subcommittee. And for the Homeless Response Advisory Committee, the recommendation is for you to consider approving appointments for Terry Lino, Stephanie Rainier, Kevin Hill, Joshua Cheney, John Brown, Candice Gorman, Anthony Ducote, Anna Schlick, Tammy Smith, Leslie Van Leeson, and Nova Payton. And Keely's here to answer any questions related to those appointments for the two.
Okay, Keely, anything you would like to add before we go for questions?
No, I'm good. I'm just ready for questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
How about if we adjusted the verbiage just a little bit and say, under action, move to appoint the recommended nominees listed as board members to the regional housing. Would that simplify it? I don't know. I mean, somebody's gonna give all the names and
Yeah, this afternoon we'll.
mispronunciations
Yeah,
and stuff.
mispronunciation. I will not do that. I will not butcher the names this afternoon. I will leave it to Keely to butcher the names. But she will highlight the names this afternoon. Will that cover your concern?
Yeah, I mean, move to appoint that's those individuals, the recommended nominees listed as board members to the Regional Housing Council. No? Does it?
Listed as board members.
Okay, well, let's hear what Ty, he always has a better explanation than I do.
My question is on a different, I was hoping Keely could explain to us what issues will come before one of these versus what issues will come before the other of these two committees.
Absolutely. So they have similar functions, but different focuses, of course. So the Affordable Housing Board will be making funding recommendations that are for capital and acquisition projects primarily. So they'll be addressing awards that would be coming from our federal home dollars, our local home fund, community development block grant. And is that true? Not the nope, that's not true. I take it back. Not that fund. And what other, Tom, this is your committee. This is your board. Go for it.
Yeah, so to pick up where Keely left off, so she's correct. The Affordable Housing Board will look primarily at capital, the development of affordable housing projects. That includes the Federal Home Investment Partnership Program, the local home fund dollars, and then the 1406 dollars, which is a sales tax retention fund, and then the 2060, which is a local document recording fee specific to affordable housing. So those are the funds that this body will oversee with a focus on the development, creation, or preservation of affordable housing units.
And the Homeless Services Advisory Board will be making recommendations for all of the rapid rehousing outreach, other homeless services provision. And those funds are the 2163, which is the document recording fees that we collect locally, as well as oh my gosh, Consolidated Homeless Grant. I'm having a hard time speaking, or CHG, and then the housing. I can't help me, Tom. I'm having
also housing and essential needs.
Thank you.
Housing, and also the Human Services Fund, the local sales tax,
Yes.
As well as any local home fund that is allocated for services.
Correct. Thank you, Tom Webster.
Correct, that's right.
So, okay, I think I got it, but like with the home fund is one where it really crosses over both, right? I mean, the statute allows for funding
Correct.
of capital projects or more service oriented. So how will that be navigated in terms of the two committees and that funding stream?
So the Regional Housing Council allocated a portion to be used for services. So the Homeless Services Board will make recommendations around services, and the Affordable Housing Board will make recommendations for any available funding for capital development of affordable housing related to the home fund.
So the RHC in advance will kind of make an allocation.
We'll make that determination of how much home fund is allocated to each activity.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just try to clarify this. How about if we put move to appoint the list of recommended nominees as board members to the Regional Housing Council's Affordable Housing. I don't know, just, I just find it unusual that we would say it without noticing that there's a list of folks. I'm trying to get away from reading their names, but I don't know, maybe it's necessary to do that. And I have nothing against them, or I don't wanna, it's just,
Well, it's not set up where we have to read the names.
okay, well, if everybody else is good with
So
it.
I wouldn't be planning to
just not
read them
reading it,
unless we
right.
change it to something.
Keely, in her presentation, will highlight the
Okay.
names.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the motion,
Okay,
it's pretty simple.
I'm fine. I think I've got a corroded wire somewhere in my head.
You and me, Commissioner, this morning.
Yeah, both of us, huh, Kaylee? Okay, good.
Having a hard time with words.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I was a part of all the interviews.
You were in the-
I was, I just want to thank staff again, because this was a very long process and that they definitely, they did great work and we had a lot of great applicants. And then there were a lot of hard decisions, so.
It's probably worth noting that the home fund statute, if I remember correctly, requires an advisory board like this. It's not like we're just creating more and more and more advisory boards like we had. I mean, it's always good to do it if you can, but in this particular instance, it was a mandate.
And just to add to that, Commissioner, the in-local agreement that we have with the City of Olympia related to the home fund, they're required to be at least 3 members of the subcommittee to be from Olympia, and we have accomplished
But
that.
it's a merger, so there won't be 2, there'll be 1.
So
that's-
it will be.
In a sense, we're not creating a new one.
So that has been achieved, and that was a source of conversation with the City of Lacey when they were considering the amendment to this Regional Housing Council.
Okay. Moving on to item F, which is approved contract amendment with Washington State Department of Commerce for the Rights of Way Initiative.
So if I may cover 6F and 6G because they are related, similar to previous items. Item 6F is for you to consider an amendment to the interlocal agreement, interagency agreement that we have with the State Department of Commerce to receive an additional $6,100,000 related to the right-of-way initiative. And that total will bring, the $6,100,000 will bring a total of $10,720,800 that we have received from Commerce related to the right-of-way initiative. As you may recall, the right-of-way initiative was a joint effort at the region level that we provided recommendations to the state as to how they can help us, manage the encampments along the state's right-of-way. The state provided, and they were very pleased to see how forward-thinking Thurston County was in terms of the regional approach. And that's how they have allocated a significant amount of money to the county. One of which is they have, with their help, we have been able to purchase a hotel in Lacey. And that was a coordination between the Department of Commerce and the City of Lacey. At no cost to any of the jurisdictions at this point. Also, the Department of Commerce committed to have a fund the operations of this hotel or enhanced shelter, as well as start funding some of the upgrades of this hotel. So eventually we'll have some permanent supportive housing at this location. So item 6F is for us to receive the money from the state, again for $6,100,000. And item 6G is a contract with Low Income Housing Institute, Lehigh, for $6 million to operate the hotel in Lacey. So I'll stop there to see if the board has any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, 2 questions. how are we going to continue the operation? What's the funding source to continue this so that it can be something besides just a one-time deal? How are we covering this? Is that gonna be covered with home fund money or other potential grant money? And then my other question on that is the cleanup costs of that whole meth issue that has been brought forward. How are we covering that, and when might we get that done?
Maybe I can answer the first question, and that can punt it to Tom on the second one. That's a good question. The ongoing operations of this hotel, whether it's continued to be enhanced shelter, the hope is it will become a permanent supportive housing, which they operate in cost out less. Is something the regional housing council need to be discussing in the next couple of years as to how the funding will go. But it has to be a regional conversation, and it will be could be a portions of the home fund, or it could be a portions of a grant. So, but that's a good question, and at this point, we don't have a crystal ball as to how that will be funded. But certainly the Regional Housing Council, by agreeing to purchase this asset, also they're agreeing to be innovative to find funding for the ongoing costs of operating costs of this facility.
Maybe just a quick little sub follow-up to that. How are we gonna keep individuals from moving back into these freeway encampments? I guess, what's the strategy to keep that? Once we get them out of there, what is the strategy to keep them out of there?
I believe the strategy behind it and the State Patrol and DOT has committed to continue to supervise those sites and not allowing for individuals to come back to those sites. But correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding, that it's a commitment to the state to continue to make sure those camps are not occupied again.
Is that commitment verbalized anywhere in writing?
Is that included in the MOU that we have with Commerce? I believe so, right, Tom?
Yes, it is, and Keely can jump on as well. Yes, that is within the MOU with Commerce, that there's the responsibilities are laid out for maintaining of the rights of way, and then folks would be trespassed once housing alternatives are identified for that. So that is a joint effort with the State Patrol, Department of Transportation. Also, City of Lacey is also engaged in that effort.
Okay, thank you.
Will you answer question number 2, Tom?
Yes.
To the cleanup of,
Yeah, the remediation. So as part of the funding that the state provided to Lehigh to acquire the property, and I can announce the property, Lehigh is going to be referring to this property as Maple Court. So that is the name you'll be hearing going forward. They have an Aspen Court, similar former hotel in Tacoma. So this one will be Maple Court. But as part of the acquisition from funding, they also received funding from the state to support the initial rehab of the property. So the state is providing funding to Lehigh to provide for that remediation that is needed. We've heard from Lehigh, they've had the initial assessments, the investigation. They anticipate it will take approximately 2 months to do that remediation work. So we're looking at having this property open up, roughly speaking, probably late May. That work is expected to start in mid-March and take through mid-May. And then at that point, they'll, shortly after that remediation is done, they'll be acquiring furniture and getting things ready to open up. So the hope is at this time, we're expecting an opening around late May, perhaps early June.
I guess
But the state is covering the cost of the remediation. That was built into the acquisition budget.
because we don't have any free money, could you?
Renovation and remediation.
At some point I will.
Okay. That's it, I guess, for me.
Commissioner Menzer, questions?
I think you guys covered it. Thank you.
Okay.
This is one of the contracts where it was hurry up and wait, I feel like. our staff did a great job in kind of working around this tight deadline that Department of Commerce set for them, and they came with this proposal, and then it's just been kind of a while to actually get to this point. And
Yeah.
And I feel like some of the situations on our right-of-ways have gotten worse. So my question for staff is, you know, since that initial kind of proposal that was set forth, that initial kind of count, like, and kind of from there to where we are now, you know, is that going to account for the new individuals on our right-of-way? Like, how is that going to work out?
Yeah, so they have grown for absolutely, and I think that's somewhat the result of other camps being swept or cleaned over the last 6 or 8 months. And as long as what the outreach efforts are doing are going out into the encampments and creating a by name list. And once they get what the process has been so far is that per camp they've put together a by name list. Once they have the completed by name list, they act as if that's it. Like, you can't add names to the list at that point once it is completed, and then they start prioritizing people into the housing that is available. At this point, they're doing a by name list of all of the remaining rights of way areas. And because we cannot move anyone off the right of ways except in ones or twos here and there when there are beds that open up at Interfaith Works Unity Common Shelter, they will wait until to close the list, I'm assuming, until both the Franz Anderson's tiny homes and the hotel are ready to accept them as residents. Because it would be impossible to say, oh, no, we've closed the list and it is now March 1st and we're not going to open it again, because certainly there's going to be movement, people between now and then.
Thank you.
But they've made it clear that once there are housing options open, Franz Anderson and the hotel, that's it. People will be trespassed, as Tom said earlier.
Thank you, Keely. Can I ask one more follow-up? And then what's the timeline, right? Like between now and when there is that housing availability, like Franz Anderson, Lehigh shelter, are we looking at 6 months? Are we looking at a year? Do we have a specific timeline, or is it kind of up in the air?
The best laid plans. So at this point, it's looking as if the end of May is what we're targeting to hopefully, like that the Maple Court will be ready to go, and a similar timeline for Franz Anderson. So at this point, the way it looks is that both projects will be ready at approximately the same time. However, of course, there are sometimes situations that will cause it to delay, but we are, everyone's really focused on getting those projects up and running as fast as possible. So I think the end of May is the earliest we could see that happening, but it will be right around then is the plan.
Thank you, Keely. And I have 2 follow-ups. I have Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Menser. Commissioner Edwards?
Keely, as this thing moves forward, I think the community, because of the resources that have been put into this solution, I guess, this is either going to be looked at as a great success or a great failure for future activities, I guess. So I just caution, let's hope it's a success instead of a failure, because it could be really a good success or really a bad failure if we don't come out on top on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser.
So Keely, the reason that, if I understand this, the reason that the state would be able to do what you said, trespass folks and keep people off rights of way, is because of the availability, legally speaking, because the availability of you mentioned Franz Anderson and Maple Court and there's Unity Commons and stuff. So, and we know, the Martin versus Boise and all of the cases that came after that, kind of put us in that position. Is that same principle going to apply to our local other camps that are not on state rights of way? I mean, once we, or is there a separation wall, like because of MOUs with the state, Maple Court and Franz Anderson are only available to rights of way people, so it's not going to apply to a camp in a non-right of way that the county might want to sweep and have, because we've got now available spots for people and we can comply with the law. Is this going to help us across the board be able to manage camps, or is this just straitjacketed for these rights of way by the MOUs? And I hope my question's clear.
It is, yes. So in our MOU between Lacey and the Department of Commerce, we have prioritization of how people get placed within specifically Maple Court. And so primarily the people that are already there, if they would like to stay, because there were people living at the Days Inn. Secondarily, rights of way, so getting people off the rights of way. When the rights of way have been cleared and there are no one else living on the state's rights of way, then we can move into, as per MOU, prioritizing people through coordinated entry into those beds and onward and onward. So it has spells out exactly how those beds will be utilized ongoing. So initially, yes, rights of way, and then we will be prioritizing people through various means, but predominantly through our coordinated entry system. So it will become a resource eventually for our community after the Rights of Way initiative has done what it's set out to do.
And at the same time, we've got new funding sources, including the Home Fund and others, where we're going to be increasing capacity. So we are working to a point, whether it's 6 months from now or 2 years from now or somewhere in the near future, where we're going to have, if we see a encampment, we're going to be able to go up to that encampment and go, you know what, we've got these available slots of some sort or other. There's different kinds, I know, Franz Anderson and everything, but we'll be able to basically say you can't camp here because there's alternatives and this is not a place where we, have camps. Is that accurate? Are we still moving toward that sort of goal?
I think that's the goal. I think programmatically there are best practices enveloped in all that process of engaging with people and then providing them an option for places to stay, certainly. But I also understand that in the governor's budget, they did set in the Rights of Way initiative some of the language that's in the middle of the legislative session now, is that they would expand the Rights of Way funds and Rights of Way activities into local communities for other rights of way. So if that passes, then funds that are coming through, I think, 44 million on up, 47 million on up for rights of way initiatives, those funds will also be available for like Thurston County in our rights of way, as far as I understand.
The other thing I just want to jump in, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, but one of the things the state has argued is that Martin v. Boise does not apply to the state's rights of way. And so that may, going forward, could impact whether, how Martin v. Boise applies to other properties in the county. So just want to kind of throw that out there. From the state's opinion, Martin v. Boise does not apply to their states of rights of way because it's a public safety issue. But otherwise, your intent is right that hopefully there will be spaces available to the county going forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a big challenge across our country or region to create more housing and all of those things. But at a local level, I think if we get to a place where we can better manage the not have encampments or manage them if we do have them, I think that'll be a big milestone for the community, I think, in terms of getting on top of this issue that's kind of been going for almost a decade now. So I'm hopeful that we get there and then we keep moving forward.
Okay, any additional questions? Thank you, Tom and Keely. Okay, with that, we will review our standing items. We do have 2 public hearings starting at 3:30. I don't think we'll be able to get through our agenda before 3:30, but that just depends on how quickly we're able to get through it. Maybe. If we're not, we will pause our regular agenda and move to the public hearings and then resume. So the first public hearing is from the auditor's office. It's precinct boundary changes and county commissioner district legal description.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You will be receiving public testimony this afternoon related to a proposed action to change the legal description of precinct boundaries that includes just about 13 precincts with boundary adjustments, 1 new precinct and repealing 7 precincts, and as well as changing legal descriptions of county commissioner districts. And for your consideration is 2 actions. 1 is to close the public hearing. And the second, depending on the public testimony you might receive, is for you to authorize and pass in the 2 resolutions, ordinances related to this action. The next item, the next public hearing is related to a development code docket A18, which is the agricultural activities within the critical areas update. And again, for your consideration, you have 2 actions. 1 is to close the public hearing. And again, depending on the public testimonies for you to consider approving the changes on development code docket A18. If the board would like to have further conversations in any of the 2 public hearing items, we'll schedule a follow-up briefing for you to have your questions answered.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards, questions on any of the 2 items?
Have we had any public comment on the first one, on the precinct divisions? Anybody complaining about anything that we've done?
Maybe Tilly or Lynn can provide that. I have not, the Commissioner's Office have not received any comments. Have you received any comments? Tilly
No,
or-
the auditor, oh, I am sorry. For the record, Tilly Polar, Elections Manager for the county. And as far as written or verbal communication from the public, we have not had any comments thus far.
Thank you. And have we had substantial comment on the ag activity one?
I don't recall receiving on the Commissioner's inbox any comments related to this item, but Ashley can probably see if CPIP has received that. Ashley?
Yeah, Ashley Rye, Thurston County Community Ag Program Manager. We have not received any written comments or any comments at all. Thanks.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. No questions for me? Okay, that will conclude our review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of February 28th. Next is the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of March 7th. This is a short agenda, so we'll go ahead and review this and then we'll take a short break.
Yeah, maybe after you review the items, Commissioners, Madam Chair, you may consider either move those items to this week or pushing those. You may consider canceling. I'm still looking for a slot of a briefing to follow up on the S&P. If you choose to cancel the meeting next Tuesday afternoon, we can utilize the spot to have a further conversation on the shoreline management plan. But for your consideration, since we have only 3 items on your agenda for next week.
Okay, with that, call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 agenda. Next, there's an opportunity for the public to address the board, county manager's update. Then we have a consent item, just one, item 3A from Emergency Services, and it's Emergency Medical Services Council bylaws.
Yeah, for your consideration is for you to approve the changes for the Emergency Services Medical EMS Council bylaws. The EMS Council submitted a recommendation on February 15, 2023 for you to consider changing one specific item on the bylaws, this Article 4, Section 4.1C. And this relates to the citizens at large. And so it's procedurally, I believe, provide more flexibility in the appointments. And that's the only change the bylaws are proposing for you to consider. Kurt is here to elaborate on that if you have any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, and I take it Kurt's not gonna say anything. Did I hear? I didn't see that. You asked him.
Yeah, if he wants to elaborate.
No additional comments? Okay, good enough. I'm
Okay.
good, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
I guess I just missed kind of what the bylaw change is about.
So on the bylaws, on Article 4, Section 4.1C, the initial language, read verbatim, 4 citizens at large consisting of 1 from each of the county commission districts plus 1 whom shall be a physician from a county commissioner district. They propose is to strike 4 and just have citizens at large consisting of 1 of each the county commissioners districts plus 1 whom shall be a physician from any commissioner districts. So it eliminates the number 4 on that clause.
I can add some clarification to that real quick if you want. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. This takes care of the issue of going from 3 to 5 commissioner districts. By striking the number 4, we just have a citizen at large then from each of the commissioner districts. And so it just addresses the issue of expanding the commissioner districts from 3 to 5.
Okay, yeah, this Kurt, I remember now from our one-on-one, this is where I was confused by the use of the term at large. You guys just use it in a way that I'm not used to, so it really confused me. But they explained that at large can, I guess, mean different things in different contexts.
I was going to say there's no standard definition of what at large constitutes, and so how we use it is different than how other committees use it.
Because you're flexible.
Okay. But just make note, I've now been confused by that twice. Even though I heard the explanation, I still got confused again. So I think it's a little bit confusing, but it's fine.
Okay. Moving on to, I don't have any questions.
Me either.
Did I skip one? Sorry. Department items for 4A from the auditors, approval of the voucher list for the week of February 13th. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, for your consideration. Commissioners is approval of the voucher list of February 13, 2023 for a combined amount of $1,078,408.47. It is included on your department items because there is some remnants of the atrium expenditures related to the improvements, tenant improvements.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
And then item 5, Public Health and Social Services. 5A, set a public hearing for HUD Consolidated Plan Need Analysis and Assessment of Fair Housing.
Is Madam Chair, is a requirement of funding, the funding the Thurston County receives from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Thurston County must prepare and submit a consolidated plan that describes the affordable housing and community development needs of the county and it defines priorities and categories and funding. This plan covers a 5-year period. This particular process includes 2023 through 2027. Within the whole process, we need to hold 2 public hearings. One is this one, where you will be outlining and receiving testimony and receiving comments from the public and the community related to the development needs and including priority and non-housing community and developments. As soon as that is done, as part of the public hearing, you will see a second public hearing where you will be in June, thereabouts of 2023, where the actual plan will be up for a public hearing before that can be finalized and submitted to HUD. Tom is here to elaborate a little bit more if you have any questions.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
No. Okay, and then there's a proposal from the county manager on the Tuesday of March 7th. Any thoughts? Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
This is just would be a regular Tuesday meeting.
Yeah, two in the afternoon.
If we continued, right? And when could we be legal to cancel this? Could it be on Monday or Friday or Tuesday? I mean, I'm trying to think of the deadline that we might have, because I'm kind of hesitant to say cancel meetings a week out, if we don't have to. I mean, we do it sometimes. That's just something to think about. I mean, I'm not locked in on anything. So what do we need, 24 hours notice to cancel or not, even that? Ideally, that would be it.
Oh, you're thinking 'cause something might come up that.
Yeah, if something comes up, if we find out something happened in the Tenino sex offender thing or something, and the community wanted to come in or whatever, and they're upset and wanna come and state their grievance, kind of a thing. That's all. I'm just
There's
wondering.
always,
Hopefully it won't.
there's always the unknown.
Yeah.
I'm just providing a
But
recommendation.
if we cancel
That's
it
all
now,
is.
then it's harder maybe to reinstate it. That's all.
And the board has exercised that in the past.
Right.
So it will not be a first time that you will consolidate items into a single meeting.
Chair's prerogative from my standpoint. It's all you.
Well, I
I
always
took the
do.
heat. and wanted the chair to cancel it.
It's always the chair's prerogative,
Yeah, actually, it's the chair's prerogative.
and I'm good with that. I just bring that one issue up about, do we need to cancel it right now versus end of the week or,
How long is the S&P briefing?
I will probably take an hour.
An hour?
Do what?
Need to follow up on the S&P and the shoreline management plan.
Yeah.
There's a couple of items that we highlighted to you. 5 items, we'd like to bring that back to continue the conversations. We don't want to delay that conversation as much as we can from staff point of view. Obviously, we don't want to rush the board in any directions, recommendations, but the conversation needs to occur, and then maybe a possibility of an alternative process that we're planning to provide at that time also.
More time the better, I'd say.
on that particular topic, isn't the next move this board takes, other than maybe some briefing stuff, whether or not, or maybe not even whether or not, does it get sent back to the planning commission to review some more changes or something?
No, I don't believe that has been part of the discussion of the board, but certainly the board can send any items back to the planning commission. But at least in this particular item, I have not been tracking that, maybe one of the.
So it sounds like we're getting closer to a final decision by the board, whether or not it accepts
So,
the recommendations or
so before the board can take an action, you need to hold a public hearing. So,
And so that's another 20 days?
yeah,
or
so
whatever.
I know you're gonna steal the thunder from Josh's group. The option is, remember we provided you with 5 elements, they include buffers and everything else that you can probably exercise your due diligence. They will also require elements from the Department of Ecology. And some other items, it will be nice to have from the Department of Ecology, right? The path that you may probably see on that is continue with that process, make your determination as to how you like to address the 5 items. the required elements of the Department of Ecology, and then go to a public hearing. Or you may consider just going to a public hearing based on the recommendations of the Planning Commission. And then after the public hearing, you will have all the elements before you to make the decision. So I don't know if you're tracking, and what I'm trying to say is, moving forward with your decision, make your determination, goes to the public hearing, or maybe just go with a public hearing, then whatever comments you have during the public hearing, you will incorporate that after the fact as part of the decision-making process of the elements that we provided to you.
Yeah, this one's got an extra ring. I mean, we always have that decision, right? Like, do we chew on this now, or do we just throw it up to the public, throw the planning commission recommendation straight to public hearing and chew on it later? This one's has this extra wrinkle of the ecology recommendations.
Right.
I don't think it makes sense when ecology is saying you have to have these elements in here to send something to the public hearing that wouldn't even get approval from ecology. Like, you're almost cutting them out of their ability to weigh in on the more complete plan. When we know that those elements are required. So I would say I'd say we have two choices, which is to do it the traditional way, or to say, put all the ecology stuff in and then throw that up to public hearing, and then we'll chew on the whole thing after.
Yeah, that is why I need to have that conversation with the board. We need to have that conversation with the board sooner rather than later. Because the staff is cognizant of how much time has taken this item. We'd like to continue the conversation. That's the reason why I suggested. Because after that is commissioners are, doing your own business, and it's difficult to find a time on a timely matter for when the three board members will be available. I'm trying to manage that aspect. Yeah, that's the only reason that I'm suggesting next week's canceling.
So, but, this meeting, if no additional matters get added, right, we'll be able to kind of get through this meeting in an hour or less, depending on the public comment, if something else happens.
So we could do S&P at 3:30
And then do it at 3, and do SMP at
and
3:30.
still try to knock this meeting out.
We can do that. I mean, it's
Just-
all the options that you have.
Just so, I mean, I know in the summer, it's gonna be harder to schedule, and I'd rather just cancel the last meetings now, right? So in the summer, and then when budget comes, we have more of that flexibility.
So what I'm hearing is we keep the meeting as is and the agenda as is. If we add any items, we'll let you know next Tuesday. And then we'll go ahead and schedule a follow-up.
Can we
S&P by
not,
3:30.
I'm going to request that no additional items be added. Just keep it light. And if that's okay, just,
Unless some emergency
Oh,
comes.
yeah,
just unless
an
of an
emergency,
emergency,
yeah.
but
Because if you were saying we needed a 3-hour work session on S&P as soon as possible, then I'd say cancel the meeting.
Yeah.
But if you're saying you're only gonna plan an hour anyway, then we could do both.
Absolutely. We'll plan on that.
I don't know where this fits in there, but it's a SMP issue. But apparently, this ordinance will not regulate corporate America. Corporate America has separate benefits, it sounds like, on who regulates them and the damage that they can do to the environment without oversight from the county. And I'd like to know if there isn't any possibility that the county could sue the state for allowing that to take place. The only answer that I could get would be from legal, at least asking that question. Why do we allow the state, even though we're a subset of the state, why do we allow them to tell us, if we're gonna regulate everybody else, but corporate America gets a free ride? I just think that that's a sin myself. And I don't know how to address it, but I want to talk about the possibility of bringing an action against the state that are allowing our waters to be contaminated, and they won't even do a review of it. You know, and when I say that, I mean, we asked for a review of the upper Deschutes during the Capitol Lake discussion, and they refused. And I think the reason they refused is because they know there is a problem. And I don't know if somebody's getting paid off or what the deal is, but I don't think our citizens ought to be held to a higher standard than corporate America. And that's kind of where I'm coming from on this whole thing, so.
It's not citizens versus corporate America, it's certain types of activities.
Wow.
Whoever's engaged into them. It's just like with wireless, right? Like they get to, federal government says
To a
they get
degree.
to do certain things and we don't have any control.
To a degree, that's right.
It's a great conversation perhaps for next Tuesday.
Okay. So before we take a break, we'll go ahead and do PIO check-in and then take the,
We missed proclamations and awards and.
yeah.
Oh, you're gonna skip them, okay.
So 2 really exciting things happening tomorrow. The launch of our new website is happening. And so when people log in tomorrow morning, we will have a new countywide website. I want to thank all of the staff who have put a ton of time into this project and have worked really hard. So super exciting to have that happening tomorrow. It is the same web address, so people will be able to get to our main page using a bookmark they had before. So it is the same address, www.thurstoncountywa.gov. And then also, oh, yes, Commissioner.
Well, I was just letting the chair know I'm gonna have a question. I didn't want to interrupt you.
And then secondly, we have a new public information specialist starting tomorrow. And Anna Rhodes, we will welcome her tomorrow, and she will be here for our agenda setting next week. Pending any questions, that's what I have for you.
And when you say we're gonna start tomorrow, we've been down for a few days apparently getting this ready. Is that right?
Kind of. There's been a bit of a content freeze where people aren't adding new things to the new site. They can add new things to the old site up until it goes live, until the new site goes live.
And that's gonna go live tomorrow.
It's
And what
technically
time to-
switching over tonight at 8 p.m., but
So
the launch is tomorrow
it'll
morning.
be launched tomorrow
Yes,
morning
yes.
at midnight or whatever.
Yeah, they're doing the whole switch over.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
I've had a complaint issue and I just want to be able to tell that constituent,
yeah.
well, take a look at it tomorrow morning and it'll be done. I don't, if I needed to say, look at it at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning or,
Nope, it
tomorrow
will be,
morning.
it will be live bright and early.
thank you.
Yes, there's still gonna be some growing pains with it. We're gonna have to probably clean a little bit of stuff up, but it's a single site and it looks and feels the same across the entire county, and it's gonna be much, much more user-friendly for our customers.
And when are we going back to our, because another piece of that complaint was the Friday 5, when are we starting on that?
Because I have a new person starting tomorrow, I'm hopeful by April we will get back into the Friday 5.
So by April 1st, possibly, we'll have Friday 5.
That's my hope, yeah.
Thank you.
No questions for me? Okay, so with that, then we'll come back to the proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. We are back from break. It is 10:58 a.m. We left off with proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions, and I'm passing it to our clerk of the board, Jamie Caldwell.
Good morning. So outside of the proclamation already discussed, I don't have any further updates. For boards and commissions, the standing requests for the Boundary Review Board and the Black Lake Special District have been included. I did receive an update from the special district that they weren't able to meet in February due to a lack of a quorum, so they're planning on discussing further recruitment efforts during their March 6th meeting. The Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee appointment requests have been included for your consideration, and all 3 applicants have been recommended for appointment by the committee.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards,
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser.
Are we gonna move forward on the treatment sales tax, or?
I was gonna ask if we had that, I didn't know we had that many openings.
This is the first, I'm sorry, I knew that a couple of them, I believe, had ended up expiring, and then Carrie and the other support staff member had provided me with an updated list, or roster, I apologize, when they sent over the applications. So they have 3 openings at the moment, and they had 3 applicants that have been reviewed and recommended for appointment. Carrie is here as well to answer any further questions about that, because my knowledge of it is very kind of high level for that one.
Carrie, can you fill us in? Who left? How?
Sure, yes. Carrie Hannon, Treatment Sales Tax Program Manager, Public Health and Social Services. So we had 2 resignations around the new year. So Marilyn Roberts and Shanita Jackson both resigned for kind of personal and professional reasons. And then the third is not an actual vacancy. It's a term that will expire in March, so a request for reappointment. So we have 2 vacancies, 1 term expiring. We just so happened to receive exactly 2 applications and the 1 request for reappointment.
Okay. Any further questions?
I know 2 of those people, and the one I don't know has a really stellar application, so I'm comfortable moving forward with them. So.
Commissioner Edwards?
Okay, let's see, on applications, I see we've got one for BOE.
The Board of Equalization,
Yeah.
Robert Hastings is a reappointment.
Right.
And I was going to ask the county manager if he could give us kind of a quick update on that board.
Yeah, I believe the Board of Equalization is, has started meeting to start listening to appeals. I did ask the clerk of the board to give me a little more information related to the schedule of the upcoming meetings for the Board of Equalization, as well as what is the backlog in terms of the number of cases they might be hearing. I have not received that information yet, but as soon as I get it, I'll distribute that to the board.
I believe it's substantial,
Yeah, and
but I don't know what it is.
me either, so that's what I asked to give a sense of the magnitude of the backlog.
And I think we had a question come in, and I believe Robin talked to Ruth, and she said that they don't get requests much. You know, they're having a hard time filling positions. One of the folks is, I think it expired in 21, and I don't think she's been reappointed yet, because it says in there, you just serve until somebody else is reappointed. But it doesn't sound like anybody's knocking down the doors for that.
Well, they haven't let us know that there's, I mean, if there's.
Any vacancies? I have not been made aware of the vacancies.
Oh, I don't think there's a vacancy, it's just that because they're still utilizing somebody, and I could tell you the name, but it's not on the tip of my tongue. And their process is somebody stays on the board, and it says so in their guidelines, until there's an opening. So I don't know, you'd
But
have to
this
ask
is a
Ruth about
reappointment.
that.
So
What, this says reappointment?
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
Robert Hastings? Mr.
Yeah.
Robert
it's a
Hastings.
reappointment, so how does that work if,
Well, he put in for it. he knew when his time was up and he was willing to serve again.
But there's someone who hasn't put in for it?
I do not know.
Yeah, this is second or third hand from
Yeah.
Robin talking
I'll follow
to
up
the
with
clerk of the board.
Before we get too much into this,
Yeah.
let me get some information.
Could we follow up on that?
Based on the last information provided, it does note in there that members continue to serve until their successors are appointed. And there was Diane Poost, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Her term did expire on 3/1/21, so
Okay,
that would
that
be
must have been the
what
one I
it would
was
apply
referring
to.
So can we reach out and just say, your term has expired, you can continue to serve, but like at least so we're updating it formally in front of the board or recruiting or doing something.
I think this is kind of like the salary commission, just maybe
Yeah.
thankless or something, anyway.
Just,
So, no, I believe I'm okay on any appointments here that we've got scheduled.
okay. So are we ready to move forward on the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee recommendations and the Board of Equalization?
I'm good.
Yes? Yes, okay.
So there will be 4 more items for next week's
Yeah.
on the consent.
Consent, yeah,
Consent.
there you go.
On Salary Commission, have they had their meeting yet? You know.
I
some
have
officials were
not
asking.
received any feedback whether they have a schedule, they had a meeting, so I need to follow up as well with. No feedback on that, sir.
Okay. Second, sorry, I'm making notes for myself. Okay, moving on to legislative update. County manager.
There, last week was the second cutoff, the legislative process. And that was when it needs to be coming out of fiscal policy committee. So you will see in the new report, there's a lot of strikes out, just for you to keep track of what bills are considered dead. Although dead seems to be a little bit different opinion in the legislature, they can resurface in some different ways. So this is what I know, at least on the terms of when the cutoff time was. A couple of items that I'd like to highlight as is on page number 1, and that's House Bill 1022. That's our bill, and that moved out of the Rules Committee. And right now, we're working very hard to put this on the floor calendar for a vote. I believe there is a good opportunity to have this voted on. There is a couple of items that we need to highlight. I need to touch base with Commissioner Edwards to see if we can do some background conversations with an individual. More to come on that. And also I have reached out to our counterparts up in Pierce County to see if they can reach out to their legislative delegation to request this bill be put on the floor calendar for I believe if it's put on the up for a vote on the floor, I believe has a good chance, and then that will move into the Senate, which begins a totally different process at that time. Another item that I'd like to highlight for you is on page 3. Top of the page, that's House Bill 1136, and I was surprised that this bill is on the floor calendar. And this is requiring employees to reimburse for employees for necessary expenditures or losses when somebody loses employment. We opposed some concerns on that. WASAC is concerned about this as well. So I don't know where it's going to be leading to.
You said on page 3?
Page 3, top of the page, House Bill 1.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. The next item that I'd like to highlight for you is on page 5. Almost second to the top is House Bill 1519. Is concerned local project review timelines. Is already on the floor calendar. Whether it moves into the Senate is to be seen. And A little bit below the House Bill 1705, the companion bill 5645, that's related to the ditch districts. The Senate version is dead, so it is unlikely the House version will move forward, but we just have to see where it goes.
What is 1519 about? Local project review?
Is what, it puts a local project review timelines, and when somebody brings a permit, the state is gonna put some parameters to when that review process should be completed by local jurisdictions. When we discuss this item, seems to be a little bit overreaching, I think, in my opinion. The state put those timelines because each jurisdiction has different dynamics in terms of what they review in the permitting process. One of the elements of this is for any reason, any local jurisdiction is not meeting those timelines, there is an opportunity to have those applicants be reimbursed up to 20% of the permit fees. And that is the, when the board discussed this item, decided to be neutral because perhaps there's some validity on terms of streamlining the review timelines. But on the other hand is having the state dictating what review timelines for local jurisdictions creates a concern.
Do we have a unfunded mandate argument there? I mean, I'm sure they're not gonna fund
They're not gonna fund.
staffing for every county so that we can meet the timeline.
So that has been a concern, but considering that perhaps there's some value on the timelines, the board decided to be neutral on this, we'll watch it. And that is proposed on the floor calendar. So. And then next bills that I'd like to highlight is on page 6. Almost to the bottom, this Senate Bill 5627. And that is on the Senate floor calendar for vote. And this is related to the salary commission appointments moving into the 5 commissioner. That's a bill that really clarifies now. Really, Spokane County, Thurston County are the only ones who have 5 commissioner representation. This bill cleans up that portion of it. And the next bill is Senate Bill 5638, which is concerning lakes in beach districts. That was the LMD bill. That is also dead, so we'll highlight that next week.
What did you say about the bill regarding ditch districts? Is it still alive or?
Oh, the ditch districts is on page 5.
Yeah.
The Senate version is dead. The Senate version 5645, it didn't get into a Senate committee.
Is there a House version that's alive?
Yes, the 1705, it is unlikely it will move forward if the Senate bill is dead. The companion bill. And that's all I have in terms of highlights for it.
Questions?
HB 1122, is that that veteran?
Page 1022,
022.
page 1, number 1.
The one that,
Third on from the top. I need to have a conversation with you, Commissioner.
was anything related to the issues that we were bringing up about the levies still survives?
Yeah, I'll give you the number of that one specifically. So I think it's 16. Yeah, it's on page 5. House Bill 1670. And that is waiting to be heard on the floor.
This,
It's moved to the floor? It's out of rules?
Is waiting to be moved to the floor calendar. Sitting rules.
this isn't our bill, though. This is a different one.
No, this is a different one. This 1607 lifts the 1% limit on the property taxes that you exercise every year.
1607, 1670.
1670, thank you.
Not entirely. It's like ties it.
No,
to
no,
inflation.
it has some limitations. It has to be, it is obviously an option for the legislative authority. It has an inflation factor for up to 3%. That is something that WASAC has been supporting, yeah. Our bill, Commissioner Messer, is on page 1 is the 1022.
It's still alive.
We're just making every single effort to bring this matter to the floor calendar.
How do you do that?
Contact your legislative authorities to argue for them to request that. So anything you can help us with, it will be appreciated.
So does this mean we have to set meetings with our legislators
Yes,
again?
phone calls and everything as soon as you can. Mainly representatives at this point, the Senate is not part of it yet. It moved out of, really has a bipartisan executive with only one vote against it. But it has bipartisan support.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and
I'm
move.
sorry, one more thing real quick. Two more things. One is 1575, there's a bill report in our packet. Is there a reason for that?
No.
And then before we move on to the next part of the agenda, I'm looking at the packet, going back to boards, advisory boards and commissions. Did we address this letter from the Boundary Review Board? Where the county commissioners have to appoint a seat, and they're asking.
We don't currently have an applicant for that one. They don't have one as well. They were just asking that we go through a regular recruitment process to get an applicant appointed for Thurston County's appointment to that one.
So we gotta put the word out.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we can coordinate with our PIO to kind of,
A single news release for open seats on boards and commissions, yeah.
yeah. And maybe that's when we can do also the ex officio for the ag board as well, or the, yeah, for the 4-H and FFA.
I don't know, I don't know what. I don't think I've had the opportunity to appoint anyone to this during my time, because it sounds like the last person was resigned January 2nd, 2019, the day I walked in the door. So, so I know that, I don't know what's before the Boundary Review Board right now, but I know from time to time, they have very consequential decisions to make about Thurston County land use decisions and annexations and things like that. So I think it's a pretty important position that we have our representative on that board. I'm surprised that I'm just not, for 4 years, I hadn't heard that we needed to recruit this person, so I'd like to try to do something.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the briefing public hearing decisions pending. We have one Park Foundation briefing for February 8th. And county manager?
Yeah, and this is, I believe, the second time the board has received this briefing. And, I don't want to go back and verbalize or paraphrase what the members of the Park Foundation has made an argument as to what this is a good exercise for the county to be part of. There is a $20,000 annual fee associated with that. And the draft MOU is included in your packet as well. So I'm going to provide my perspective about this, and it's a similar perspective when the board heard this a couple of years ago. Overall, I think there is value for the Park Foundation to provide services, and I think mainly applies to, specific projects within the local jurisdictions. They have signed into this, this program. But honestly, I'm struggling to see what the value they will bring to the county. And they highlighted that perhaps the opportunities to, bring additional grants, conservation future grants, and find different ways to fund improvements. So I think you can attest to the fact that Public Works has been extremely effective in securing conservation future grants to build park infrastructure. And the issue that we have with parks is operations and maintenance. It's not necessarily we have like funding to build improvements. And this argument, this conversation has occurred every year during the budget process, because that's the struggle that we have. We have a lot of money to build infrastructure, and we have very little to operations and maintenance. So that's probably a little bit of my feedback that I'm struggling in terms of the value. Secondly, where the money will come from, the $20,000, could be probably general fund. As you know, the general fund already subsidizes portions of the park, program, and that even rarely covers what the activities that we need to do. And also, just my humble perspective, that if we engage on this program, then we have to spend a lot of time and effort from the staff point of view just to educate the members of the Park Foundation as to what our programs are in order for them to embark on this journey. So those are the similar comments that I provided a couple of years ago when this matter was before you. And I like to be consistent in my perspective. And again, my humble opinion, I just don't see the value of the county joining this effort, and I will stop there.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards.
Basically, I mean, if I boiled that down, our need is for operations, not for acquiring property, basically. That's it, right? Yeah. And so they've talked about the fact that they can acquire resources to obtain things or build things, but we still don't have any ability to maintain it. So I guess my question would be, and I don't know the answer to this, did this group on any of their presentations allege that maybe they felt they could lobby the legislature to give us authority for maintenance, or would be able to get grants for maintenance to keep our existing parks up? That's my concern. No point in getting things that we can't keep up. And that seems to be the predicament that we're in now, so. And then where the money might come from, I'm always trying to protect the general fund, but would this fall under the health and wellness of our community, being able to have park activities, and so we could use ARPA funds? Come on now, we're trying to make everybody better, and this is how we'll do it. I don't know, boy, you hear about some of the jurisdictions around the country that are using those ARPA funds. They have stretched it way farther than we have. I keep hearing about, well, they're gonna have to pay it back or whatever. I don't know if they are or not, because it's so screwed up around the country, I think, that nobody's going after anybody to make them pay anything back, but neither here nor there. So if we had other than general fund, I'd be more inclined, but I'm kind of with the county manager on this. I hate to agree with him too much. People think we get along or something.
It's probably 3 times in less than a week.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for me, ma'am.
Commissioner Menzer.
Looking back at my notes from the briefing, I mean, the way, because, I just had this I don't disagree with some of what the county manager said, but I've had to scratch my head because when they first approached us, they had an MOU with Olympia. Now they've got MOUs with all of the Lacey, Tumwater, I think Tenino, so it's like somebody's seeing the value, somebody's getting value, somebody's seeing that there's a good reason to do it. Along the lines of what Commissioner Edwards said, we are so strapped to make anywhere near the kind of investments that we need in our park system that I'm looking for. I mean, so I see it as kind of like a pilot, you know, it's like pilot project. If it doesn't work, we don't renew it. If it does work, we evaluate what we got out of it, and if it wasn't worth it, then it was a failed pilot. But I'm desperate for any resources to try to enhance Thurston County parks. I'm looking at my notes of what kinds of projects they were doing in the other places, and what I've got is helping Olympia with an Recreation Conservation Office request for ball fields, procession of the species, a new partnership with Tenino, with Tumwater. Tenino, they're doing all the financial backing for the quarry pool, and that's something that they would do for a smaller jurisdiction probably, that doesn't have the capacity to do all the financial fiscal agent stuff. For Lacey, it says REI grant for the Greg Cuyo park area, because REI will not give that grant to a government, but will to a government-involved partnership. So it allowed them to qualify and apply for something that they couldn't have accessed otherwise. For Yelm, they got a $2 million grant for their trail connection and also helped them with the dog park. So I mean, I'm not gonna twist anyone's arms here, but my point of view is that it's a modest, everyone else is seeing value out of it, and I think we're the most hamstrung with financing our park system, and is it a worthwhile thing to try? With the understanding that we may only be there 1 year, you know, if we don't see that it's working the way we thought. I don't know.
Well, we just moved the Thurston Thrives contract from the general fund to that freed up how much?
40.
40,000. In my perspective, I kind of see the both sides of it. But we do, I mean, all of these things, park, arts, recreational, and culture are so far down the county's. They've been so underfunded in the past so many years that for me, if there's an opportunity to add something or get another opportunity for the county to do it, and not saying that our public works staff isn't proactive, they are absolutely proactive, but they're also limited. Staffing resources are limited with them when it comes to some of these grants. And I'm willing to do a pilot project on it and see if it works for us. And if it doesn't, then we can say, you know, thank you, but no thank you. But giving an opportunity to actually at least try it out and see if it does work for us, if we're able to qualify for some funding. We don't have an arts program at the county. We don't have a cultural program at the county. And seeing if there's sources available for us to even, you know, do something with that the county has the possibility to do something, I would be interested. I've gotten asked several times by constituents why we don't have something related to the arts in the county. And you know, it's not far up our list. So if there's a possibility for us to do something with you know, kind of what the services that they're offering, I would be interested in finding out kind of what it is. But you know, just on kind of that pilot program viewpoint of things, and seeing if it's, you know, it's something worthwhile.
Again, if my perspective was not necessarily securing grants to build something, because that seems to be their main mission. Even if we have money coming in, we will not have money to maintain it. And that's what I'm struggling with. We're gonna be bringing additional money to a program that we're not able to maintain. So we still have even more burdensome requirements to maintain a facility. They wouldn't have the money to do so. So that is really my, I'm not trying to undermine their perspective of what they're bringing to the table. I think they have been very clear in the examples the Commissioner Mr. stated is right on point. But after that, what? In the county, if we don't have the money just even to maintain what we have, and that continues to be the struggle that we have. Because remember, there's two funds, the operations and the improvements. And the improvements are based on the park impact fees. And we have significant amount of money in there to improve the system or build something new.
So if we can get the bill passed that allows us to use 15% or 25% of park impact fees for maintenance operation, then you would see a better nexus.
Right, because I think it has to be, I believe programmatic, and you key right on good points, Madam Chair, and some of the value the community is looking for. What the county is not doing more for cultural and other recreation activities. It's just we don't have the money to maintain it.
It can be something as simple as like, is there funding availability for maybe partnering with our historical society, and I know they have several projects all throughout Thurston County, right, where they highlight different historical, different things. They have the brewery. I don't know if anyone's seen this little brewery cart that they have, which is it's great, right? But they've been kind of doing that on their own, and for me, it's again, that comes to the arts and culture part of things. Is there a way that maybe we can invest, maybe not in something structural, right? Because you're right, operational, we're short. But is there a possibility to, if we can't do an operations thing, maybe we can partner with someone else who is able to kind of promote different things in Thurston County? I feel like our historical society would be a great avenue because they promote all kinds of different things throughout the county, and they have different projects that they support and that they help, and I feel like that connects with arts and culture part of the park foundation, and maybe that's the investment that we see in there. I'm curious to see what is available for us and pieces where we're not funding them. Commissioner Edwards, I saw your hand up.
I don't know what the time element is on doing what we may or may not do. Is there any reason, though, that we couldn't ask them that question? Hey, do you think you could do something about obtaining operational funds versus acquiring stuff? Because that's what our problem is keeping everything up that we've got today. And the second piece of mine would be, I don't know why it wouldn't fit for wellness and health to keep our parks up. That's what government's supposed to do, is provide for the overall benefit of the community, and I think that's part of it. If we provide that, so I'd make an end run at the ARPA funds and go for it.
Still, we ended up at the same spot.
Well, we might, but at least give them that year to figure out if they could come up with.
Yeah, I don't know if ARPA funds will qualify, but we can probably explore that.
What's the hurry?
Yeah, could we, I guess for the next step that I would suggest would be have legal look at this memorandum of agreement first, right? To see if it kind of matches what, our expectations or something, just, And then, you know, we can ask them additional questions such as what Commissioner Edwards have, and then kind of proceed from there. From where I'm standing at, I think it has some value to it, at least as a pilot program for the $20,000 investment, because it's going to be easy to track on our investment, right? If we invest $20,000 and we get $0 back, then we're going to know. But if we invest $20,000 and we're able to get additional grants, then we're going to see that pay out. It's going to be trackable. There's going to be actual sources coming in or nothing coming in. So I'm interested in seeing that, and kind of setting this as a pilot.
Would you like me to bring it forward as part of the budget amendment process? I mean, we'd explore the arbor to see if it's eligible, certainly work with legal to look at the contract, but I mean,
Yep.
that's one avenue.
One avenue.
You can tell me the floor to pay for it.
Yeah, since it's gonna require time, so
Right.
that will give us that time that we need to kind of
Review it.
review it,
it'll-
and
It'll be on a track.
Yeah.
All right.
is that okay with?
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have direction on that. Next, Commissioner items, medical assistant position, Board of Health recommendation follow-up.
Very timely, David.
That's right.
And this is a, going back to, you already took some actions related to the Board of Health recommendations related to the about $300,000 of additional public health. What is that remaining item? And I attached the meeting minutes on your packet related to the medical assistant position. And, Vice Chair Williams moved to recommend the Board of County Commissioners that they fully fund the maternal child care position, which you did, and shift the medical assistant positions to the priority list if funding was available for the position. Commissioner Mejia, Board Member Mejia seconded, and it was passed 6-1. So that's the last remaining item related to the medical assistant position. They need to circle back on the recommendations from the Board of Health. Do you like to begin a little conversation on that, David?
Yeah, County Manager said it well, and good morning. Where we left this was moving this position to a place, if it could be funded or not. We do have the funding for this position, but I believe at our last Board of Commissioners meeting, there was some conversation, Madam Chair, about whether you wanted to move forward with the position at all. So I wanted to just address this first piece, which was we do have funding available for this particular position. That was one of the questions that we had from the Board of Health. But it does sound like you had other questions as well. So I want to just sort of lead with that. We do have the funding available, but some of those are other questions you might have as well with the position.
Questions? I've spoken with David about kind of just all of my concerns from the very beginning of how this position was approved, what was presented to us by the previous director. And so for me, I guess my question is, I'm struggling to see the need for this position. And so how many, like, you know, it got changed a little bit before with the needles and arms was basically kind of what was given to us at the 2021 presentation when we approved it, right? It was for COVID, our nurses were full force into that pandemic, making sure that, you know, and so this position was going to come in assist them with giving shots, helping with TB, so our nurses, because all of our nurses were
participating with just our COVID. So pandemic. And so now that we're here, right, our nurses have gone back. I'm just really struggling to see the need for this position because we only have so many TB patients in Thurston County. Unless there was a TB breakout, right, where this position was ultimately needed, then I'm just really struggling to see even the funding for this position when I feel like there are other programs or other needs that public health and social services has that could be funded with this position. And, you know, whether it's augmentating the translation services for environmental health, whether it's just different aspects of things where I feel like we could do more than just have a position that really, I'm really struggling to see the need. And things have changed from when we first approved it to now. And, you know, back then we approved it because there were really good considerations, but those circumstances have changed. And I'm not there with even funding this position at all. So those are mine, Commissioner Edwards.
I don't have any heartburn particularly going along with that or doing something else. I'm kind of in limbo on this. I'm kind of curious, the chair brought up the TB issue. What's the complication with the TB issue? Is it require that this person focus on that issue?
I think it's how we best kind of use our we have a fairly small staff of nurses. And this position has the ability to do direct observed therapy medications for TB patients.
Say that again.
Sorry, it's a mouthful, isn't it? Direct observed therapy medications. So this position can actually go and help TB patients. You have to have.
Is there a need that we do that?
Yes, we do it. And to Commissioner Mejia's point, it varies in terms of when we have outbreaks or not. So it's not like it's something that happens, you know, we don't have 100 patients.
Okay, let me interrupt you there just for a second. If we did not have the need right at the particular time, does that allow us the option to do, I don't know, whatever you determine is more appropriate to do at that point in time, if just saying that there is no TB problem? And then my follow-up to that is, if we don't do this, are we gonna send money back to the state?
Yeah, I can answer both those questions. The second question, yes. I mean, we would need to figure out what to do with that funding. So if we don't move forward with this position, we would have to figure out what to do with that funding.
Thurston thrives.
Which is definitely an idea. So we would have to figure out, so there would be two things we'd have to think about with this funding. You'd have to figure out what to do in the short term, so between now and the end of the state fiscal year, so next couple of months. Like the county manager says, that would be something that we could look at for Thurston Thrives. And then we'd have to figure out what we want to do with the funding going forward as well, because we're going to get the money kind of ongoing. So there would be that. And
Because this position was included already on the base.
that's correct. So to your first question, and to address the chair's sort of comments too, yeah, we are in a different space. I agree. And I can't really speak to the sort of the decisions or mindset of my predecessor in terms of where we were here. If you were to ask me today and put me on the spot, which you are, about how I feel about this, honestly, like I would go for, frankly, a higher level position than an MA. Like I think we actually could get more value from adding like a nurse to our roles. We have a lot of, we have a growing population. We've got growing communicable diseases. We have increased number of refugee community. Like if you were to say, what would you do with this funding? I would actually move towards looking into, for next year's budget, into that personally, which you're not asking me to do that before you, but I'm just putting out there, that's where I would do with this.
Maybe that's a good point, and I absolutely agree with Commissioner Mejia. Circumstances change, when you made a decision based on the activities of the current environment, and things change, and the board needs to adjust accordingly. And I think just bringing back to what David somewhat alluded to, the fact is this position is funded. We're not going to be, it's pretty clear the board is not interested in filling that position. Recommendation is give us time to re-engineer and bring back a position during the budget process. And at that point, then if there was a nurse or any type of different position, then you will have the ability to weigh in whether you agree with the new re-engineering of this position. If not, you just eliminate it during the budget process. That will probably be my recommendation at this point. In terms of the funding, there is not an urgency for the board to take an action related to the funding, as we have expressed in the past. But just building on what David said, we hear the board perspective. Things have changed, even for the department has changed. The needs have evolved. Give us the time to re-engineer this position, bring a different proposal for you during the biennial budget. And at that point, we'll see where the board wants to go.
I don't have anything to add. I'm okay with where, I don't know, if Commissioner Mejia is okay with the county manager's suggestion. I mean, I'm kind of with Commissioner Edwards. I don't have a strong opinion. I'm trying to listen to my leadership and my seatmates in terms of having, if we can do better with this position. And I think that I see how we might have made a decision under a different set of circumstances, and why not take advantage of the changes now and do something better. I'm not decided what that is, but my ears are open, so.
I guess I'm gonna follow up on Commissioner Menschert. I agree, but I don't wanna send the money back is the problem.
Right.
I wanna make sure we utilize the money. I don't wanna hire somebody and then have them sit there and twiddle their thumbs either. So I wanna make sure that, and I'm kind of inclined to go with your recommendation of a higher echelon position that might give us better bang for the buck yet. So that's kind of where I think I'd wanna go. If we can do that, if we can make it all work. So, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at.
If I may, Commissioner, in terms of the not giving money back, I have the same feeling. So I think we could come up with some proposals pretty quickly about how to spend the existing money there. And honestly, I would take, of course, feedback and input from the board for that, but I actually think that the Thurston Thrives contract, for example, is actually not a bad idea. I know it's come up a couple times, I think from you, actually. And I actually think this could be a really good way to do it. So it's a one-time funding for this particular year, but to me, it seems like a pretty good way to spend half of it.
Related to the risk of the county giving money back to the state, it's not necessarily just related to this position. It's related to every single allocation the board has made. So that risk exists, and we, as a staff level, will make just about every single possible effort not to send any money back to the state. And that's fundamentally the objective. So it's not just this position, it's the overall allocations that we need to track. So I just want to clarify that.
But just so I understand, County Manager, were you saying, what I thought I heard you say is that we're not under a time pressure, we can continue to think about how to re-engineer this position request, and we can do that in the course of, what were you saying, the timeline?
We'll bring that as part of the biennial budget conversation.
And that won't prejudice in
No,
terms
because
of
we'll
the
find
money
other,
being spent,
we'll find other strategies to make sure that we don't.
That's correct. So you're thinking about two different kind of budget years. So we're talking about short term for the state's budget year for this year. That'll be up to me to figure out how to spend that money there. What county manager is referring to is the ongoing funding, which you would have time to do as part of our normal process with you all budgeting.
So you're saying, don't fill the position, let David bridge the gap, and then.
And then we'll bring for the recommendation, re-engineering.
Whether it's nurse or something else.
Because Commissioner Mejia makes a good point. I mean, the circumstances that you make the decision back 3 years have changed. give us the chance, the opportunity to adjust to that. Yep.
And,
Yeah,
for extra 40,000, we could pay, you know, for Thurston Thrives, or whatever the, you know, I guess.
So just to
we
verbalize
agreed on
this,
that, I guess.
we'll keep this position vacant and we'll bring options during the budget process.
How's everything else?
It's going pretty well. My daughter lost her second tooth, so I was up late trying to figure out what to get the tooth fairy.
Inflation hits the tooth fairy.
Inflation, that's a good one.
Scrap pennies and quarters. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so with that, we do have an executive session coming up. It is 11:49. This executive session will take 30 minutes. So we'll go ahead and get started unless there's a commissioner item that commissioners would like to discuss at this time.
Could I bring up one real quick thing, not controversial? Where are we at on signs for the motoring public to come into this facility? The facility is available, here it is. Once they,
We are in permitting with the city of Olympia. That's
oh,
where.
okay, so it's in the works.
It has
So
been
the
in
sign at
works,
front, that we have a design to change it, and that's what we're.
And
Okay.
that is why we need approval of the
Okay.
city.
Government bureaucracy.
And then even internally here, you know, which office to go where, where's the restroom? Well, you know, it could have a restroom sign back
So
here.
there's a map at the front when you come in.
Yeah.
There is a map on the wall. And then we have a listing of which offices, the office number, and we're working on additional signage
Okay.
for, yep.
I just had a constituent question, so.
These are the things that are still in the works, and it's I've been calling them the finishing touches for the atrium.
Including kind of maybe directing people to parking or something. I don't want people to have to park over across the street.
Yes, and parking, we'll paint the parking lot, but we have to wait for the weather.
Okay, good enough, that's,
So there'll be
Thank
a
you.
voucher list item for some time now for all those things.
well, some of that stuff is gonna have to just be, we'll get there, we're gonna get there pretty quick, I know we're almost there. Thank you.
You know, related to the budget, there's a lot of things that we need to track differently. You see a couple of items for the lease of this building and paying the lease for the parking spots and all this stuff. So it's all best part of it, just to keep track of all the different elements. But that's the ongoing.
I think at some point we have to trust the public not to walk through the windows and remove the blue flag.
So one of the things that we've
We
got
are-
on order that's taking a while is frosted strips with the county logo to go across
Oh,
the
that's what's
glass
gonna
that they've
help
been.
the.
Yeah, just like at one nice strip, Thurston
Yep.
County or
We're
something, yeah.
We're gonna put all the way
Just to
around.
finalize the conversation, I just had a conversation with Robin. All the beautiful windows there in front of the building. In the afternoon, the sun gets very hard, and the staff who mans the front desk is
Yep.
wearing glasses and
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Unbelievable.
So we're gonna be looking for a way to cover the top windows so it eliminates that exposure.
Okay.
So
That
you
was
will
it
see,
for me.
you will see a voucher line item on that one, Commissioner.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and go into executive session. We'll go into executive session per RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. This is Thurston County versus DNR Summit Lake. This session will take approximately 30 minutes. We have concluded with our executive session. It is 12:29 PM. We were in executive session per RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party to Thurston County versus DNR Summit Lake. No commissioner's action follows that executive session. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.